Ladies and gentlemen, after a 1 week break, PSGL F2 is back and we head to something completely different for round 4. The brand new Madrid circuit, as we last time, whereas Belgium gave us a brilliant finish with Cushy taking his first victory of the season after incredible last defence against Harm, holding on by just 0.2 of a second towards the end. Harm had Serling for second, while Fleur completed the podium right behind as well, and Kevin Zunderberg endured a difficult race, dropping all the way to P13 after starting much higher up due to contact, I think, with Oscar, who had a drive-through penalty. But now the championship moves on and Madrid brings a completely new challenger spectacle. This is a fresh circuit for everyone. I mean, there's no established advantages from years of experience. The drivers have to learn the track, find the limits, and figure out where the overtaking opportunities are and where the absolute limits is. Long straights, technical braking, heavy corners, zones and sections where position is absolutely crucial. We just came off a 1 week break. Hopefully you all enjoyed that, as I didn't really do much of the break, but anyway, we are now back on this new circuit, and yes, there is only 12 drivers tonight, so not the attendance we anticipated, but hopefully with these 12 drivers, Milan, we can get racing. My name is Jamie Morris, and alongside me tonight, Milan. Before I start, by the way, I want to profusely apologise to everybody because I thought F2 started at 8 o'clock because I was in F3 for 4 seasons and it started at 8 o'clock, and I was panicking because I only had like 3 minutes left to go and I had to get everything up. So I do apologise for running late here. I thought it started at 8 o'clock, but we are here, up and running, and hopefully everything is plain sailing. But yes, my name is Jamie Morris, and alongside me tonight is Milan. Milan, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing good, thank you very much, and great to be back, of course, after that week break, as we always see a quick lap time from Kevin with a 129.1 going to the top, but immediately getting beaten by Krishy with a 29.0 as Ivan hits the ball on the outside of the final corner with a 29.6, but it is great to be back here at Madrid, of course, a brand new venue on the calendar. And let's see what this track is going to bring us tonight. Of course, in the championship, we still got Botti leading the championship after that double win at the beginning of the season. He missed last week. He's not here tonight either. But maybe after tonight, we'll have a different championship leader because he's only 4 points ahead of Fleur, who has shown some good consistency so far this season. And they are driving tonight, and they are going pretty quickly as well on their lap as the Bartolomé goes P4 with a 130.0. But the RB driver going through these final sector, very slow hairpin, and to the double right hand a little bit wide through the penultimate corner, and now trying to get that final corner. That right is also very tricky indeed with the wall so close on the inside and the outside. We're going to cross line with a 29.084, beating his teammate by 9 thousandths of a second.
Good evening, Logan, in the chat. So it is a racing wall. Oh, Eric has just smashed the wall there in the fast right-hander in the curve. So unfortunately there, Eric's lap time has been ruined, and a front wing change is necessary there for the Dutchman, who has been struggling this season. He finished, I think, down. He didn't take part in the Belgian Grand Prix last week. I think he did, actually, because I remember him being at the back of the field along with his teammate there in the Haas as well. But yeah, this track is in competition already. Yeah, close times towards the front. Sorry about this, guys. I'm trying to get my bearings because I have properly scuffed this as well, so I'm trying to get my bearings. But the sister team is ahead of the senior teams, I must say, of Kevin and Ivan Drosk. Ivan did leave IRT, hence why he's got no longer IRT in his name there. But these two strong teammates, I dare say, Ivan and Kevin, and these two as well, Fleur and Cushy, they both had a double raceable podium back in Belgium. Cushy obviously finished in first place, and Fleur finished in third place. A spectacular fashion for both racing ball drivers to provoke themselves up the standings and make them ever larger in the championship picture of the threat as well. Oscar in the Aston Martin, as Zane goes up into P5 in the Williams, he goes there. But Oscar, who picked up a drive-through penalty at the very start of the race, unfortunately unravelled for him, and him and Kevin Zunderberg made contact through turn number 1 at La Source, which pretty much ended their race prematurely as well. There was no hope, and you can see Oscar just scraping every single wall he goes through as well, especially through this last sector as well. So Oscar clearly not enjoying this new segment of this track, but he makes his way now towards the final corner, and this lap time is not going to be competitive. It's going to be only P10, obviously, with a 33.9. We've got Simon and his teammate Richard in P12, not to set a lot of times just yet. Richard finished P4. He was the reserve driver back in Belgium, and he did an exceptional job as well for good measure. And it was a chaotic race as well in Belgium. I thought Cushy did win the race, but I thought that Harm had it in the bag because he was closing it at a rate of not catching Krishy hand over fist. But Krishy in the end managed to defend against the ever-charging Harm and kept him at arm's length and finished across the line. Yes, there was contact at the final corner, but I dare say Harm was the one that lost traction and went sideways off the track and had to unfortunately pay the cost for that. Eric is still out there on that broken front wing, so he's not pitting. And hopefully this lap he does enter the pit lane because he's run out of fuel. So clearly not enjoying this track. I suspect, Milan, a lot of people not really liking this layout.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it's a brand new track, and not many people have put that many hours in this track compared to well, the majority of other tracks that have been in the game for years and years. So definitely see some drivers struggling compared to others, and this qualifying might not be as representative as the others may have been, just because everyone is just trying to find the limit of the track. Simon in the Mercedes is on a decent lap so far, his first lap time of this session. It could be with just over 10 minutes remaining in the session as he heads down to the braking zone into the right-hander underneath the tunnel, and then through a very quick flat-out left-right section here, and then down into the braking zone of that very slow turn 20, where we really need to get the exit right as well as turn and accelerating at the same time. Always can be a bit tricky. She slightly hits the inside wall there, and through the penultimate corner, very decent indeed. We'll see what this lap time is going to be as he rounds the final corner. Oh, very close to the inside once again. It is going to be a 29.1 though, so a decent lap time indeed, putting himself just behind Kevin Zonneveld on the second row. Speaking of Kevin Zonneveld, he is just starting his flying lap. Richard Wiki in P12 has started his flying lap, but unfortunately has already invalidated through the first couple of corners, so not going to be this lap where he is finally going to set a lap time. But majority of the drivers are back out on track for their second runs, including the two RBs, but Kevin has already invalidated as well through the first couple of corners, or he's just going for a second warm-up lap.
Yeah, I think in the first two corners he slipped up there very easily done indeed as McLaren makes his way past then of the Tsunami. I think he's not flying lap time. Deepak Kapodia did Tsunami. He's doing quite well this season and a 10th up in the first set. He picked up a podium back at the Chinese Grand Prix. Of course, I wasn't there. They finished 5th at the Belgian Grand Prix too. So picked up some decent results. As we know, he was racing last season too in F3. Now promoted up to F2. A lot of these drivers come from F3 and different categories as well. Nice to see some returning and new as we see the Tsunami then making his way down towards this left-hander go. Quick left-hander back on the throttle immediately before sweeping through this flat-out right-hander indeed as we now make our way towards this middle sector we go. Let's see how he takes it. Oh, he lost a bit of time in the middle sector. By the way, guys, I don't exactly know this layout. I'm going to admit to you, I'm not going to lie to you, that I've not done my proper research. I was going to do it now before, but then I realised F2 starts at 7, so I'm not quite familiar with this track. I did commentate it on a different league, but unfortunately I can't seem to adjust to it. Jody Setcher Racing. But anyways, we make our way now towards the final corner. We go a bit hesitant through there. Let's see what lap time this is for the Tsunami. He goes up into P6 just behind Ivan in the Red Bull. Ivan 2 has just invalidated. What about the Racing Bull pair? Fleur, a second down. He's just invalidated too. That's the main narrative in this qualifying session. A lot of drivers invalidated, except this man, Krishy. Oh, sliding his way towards the final corner. And it is pole position with a 28.775, 3/10 quicker than Flo P2, despite that slip up in the final corner, still took pole away by 3/10 of a second there, and that is the new benchmark to beat indeed, 28.775. I do believe some PC tiers were cancelled too, and had to merge into one, especially in F2. And I know a lot of drivers boycotting this race, as Richard couldn't boycott the wall there, unfortunately, on the outside, as he now makes his way down towards the bank, and he goes. But of course, he has just invalidated. That's the main story this qualifying session. A lot of people just tripping over themselves and invalidated too. As we see Lou coming through the first two corners, he goes then a 31.83 behind Eric in the Ferrari, as we now see the Ferrari driver progress all the way up here. He has been competitive this season, has Lou, shown some good results. He had a DNS back at the British GP, but finished P6 in Belgium. I feared that he may have been higher up as well, as the Ferrari driver. Took a win last season too, and he's a couple of hundreds down in the first sector is Lou, as he makes his way now towards the middle sector we go. Let's see how he takes these sequence of corners flat out through here as well, just knowing when to apply the battery. You want to stay tight towards this right hand, don't hug it, but as you can see now, just hooking up on the apex as he now makes his way towards this slow left-hander we go. Let's see how he does through here. On the power, third gear, back up to the traction on the gears as well. and using more battery for good measure as well. But yes, as you can clearly tell, I haven't done a specific research around this track. 1/10 down in middle sector is low. This is a learning curve, not just for me, but everybody in this session for F1, F3 as well. Understeer, horrible understeer through that particular part of the track. And in the race too, I suspect that a few drivers may struggle with understeer, especially in the race trim. So drivers got to mitigate that and try and manage it in those opening phases. But let's see what Luke could do. He's quite far away, isn't he, from a lap time he needs to be happy of. It's a 31.7, does improve by 1/10 of a second. It's not real. It is a big field spread from P5 to P6, but from P1 to P5 it's separated by 5/10 of a second. So yes, that's a massive field spread indeed. The Haas boys, Vessel and Eric, well, you can see there 1.2 seconds away from each other. Vessel now threading a needle through that chicane. He goes hop, skip and jump. And back of the power, you want to be very, very careful in that chicane because it's easily done being airborne and thrown off the track there by losing the stability of the car as well, as he now flicks his way towards these fast sequence of corners. He goes, carrying the speed all the way through 6 gear. Use the battery 2 on this particular part of the racetrack, keeping the throttle in, trying not to scrub too much speed through the corners. As we're going now towards this left-hander we go. This could be another chance to overtake at this corner here as well. But I suspect the main chances to overtake is towards the end of the first sector, and possibly, no, I actually don't know, towards turn 1 as well, and maybe through here if you catch a few drivers making mistakes, because it's easily done as Vessel is 2/10 up in this middle sector. A bit of oversteer too for good measure, as he's now hard on the brakes now, coming towards the final few corners of this track. There is 4 minutes left to go in this qualifying session, as every single driver there trying to get a lap time on the board around this difficult track, as Vessel is now in the pit lane.
Few drivers back out on track. Lou still out there, but going back into the pit lane. Oscar also struggling, it seems like, in the Aston Martin. Definitely not the similar pace that he had last week or 2 weeks ago in Belgium. As he once again had invalidated. So did Kevin and Fleur also invalidated on their second runs. So definitely seems to be a theme around this track. It's so easy to invalidate through the first couple of corners, and especially that very quick chicane, where they, well, luckily they fixed it with the sausage curbs, but otherwise you could completely take that flat out. But still, it can be a challenge with track limits, and it shows for these drivers as well. As we've got 3.5 minutes to go in this qualifying session, Kevin is back out there once again. Looking to find an improvement. He knows that if he finds a couple of hundredths of a second, he could be on the front row. He's a little bit more than that though to be able to beat the time of Chris. Yes, he's a good 4/10 behind at the moment in P3 as he comes out of the final corner, and he is going to start yet another flying lap. Let's see if he can make it through turns 1 and 2 without validating this time, as it looks much better this time around. Gets on throttle on the exit there of turn 3, and then this very long run heading towards that quick chicane of turns 5 and 6, as he's saving up the battery down to the braking zone. First to the left, then to the right. You can really take a lot of curb through that chicane. And now it's uphill into the braking zone. Very easy to lock up into this hairpin, but he takes it quite nice, and he's already up by over 1.5 tenths of a second through sector 1. So a good start to his flying lap. Very quick to the right-hander, then through the left. And we see some drivers banging the wall there on the outside. You don't get damage from it. But it can be a little bit of a strategy around that corner. Now very tight to the inside and into the braking zone for the next left-hander. And running out onto the curb, this should be flat out through the right and through the left as well. Then lining up nicely for the braking zone of the very tight right-hander coming up. And you can really take a lot of curb as well through the inside there and through the tunnel now. And flat out it should be through the left and the right, maybe a little bit of a lift to try and save up a bit more battery for the final couple of corners around this lap down to the hairpin of turn 20. Getting on throttle nicely. Ricker's Wiki, his first lap time goes to 28.9. So a great pace so far from the Aston Martin driver. Might be his only lap time of the session, but Kevin comes out of the final corner. P4 becomes P1 as he goes quick as 28.614. And a good 1.5 tenths ahead of Krishy, but he's already found that in sector 1.
Well done to Kevin Soderberg, left from P4 to P1 and found a huge amount of lap time. But Krishy is on an absolute flyer in the racing pool, so watch out for him, watch out for his teammate in P4. And Richard in P3, great job for him. His first lap time finally stamps his authority in P3. But can anybody steal the limelight away from Kevin Soderberg, trying to get his first pole position of the season? Krishy up by slightly under, I think, 200 of a second there, so needs to find more time. You can see him really wringing the neck of the car, trying to find more speed, and you can see the McLaren just in front of us, just getting out of the way there as well, as we make our way now towards these final few corners on this racetrack, and keep it nice and tidy. Turn 20, 21, and turn 22, which is the final corner. Who's that? Who's that? Oh my goodness me, that's a Red Bull in the way. And that is a van not paying attention, not having his wits about him. So, unfortunately there, the Racing Bull has been hampered by the Red Bull. And I'm pretty sure that Helmut Barker will not be happy, even though he's not even in the Red Bull camp anymore. But Fleur is 1 tenth down in the middle sector, but he's backed off. That's his qualifying, I think, done. Maybe he's still got this lap time on the board, but he's low on battery anyways to start with. That's Chris's qualifying done. I think qualifying is almost at its end. As the Boston Army, 10 seconds left to go in this session then. So Boston Army is down by 200 of a second there as well, but he can make up the time in the final sector. Let's see how he does. Well, that's the first sector, sorry. He's coming towards now these fast few corners now around the banking. This is, I think, turn 12 we go. Turn 12, flat out corner. Turn 13 and 14 up next. Turn 13, of course, this sharp left-hander. Breaking hard through here as well. Getting close to the wall as you possibly can. Now through 14 and 15. Sweeping through these fast bends before we make the way down towards 16 and 17. 17 there you can see. Slip hard on the brakes there. Get a good run out of the exit. He's a 10th up in the middle sector is the Boston Army. So can he keep this progress up? Can he keep it together towards the end of this lap where many people fall foul to these walls here? They're very close indeed. As he gets back on the power, massive wheel spin there too for the Boston Army, flicking his way through the final couple of corners on this track. Qualifying has been concluded. The Boston Army making his way towards the line. He goes. It's a 29.773, and that's good enough for only PA. But Fleur is up in the middle sector, but there's somebody in front of us. Hopefully that's not the Rebel again. But Fleur, what can he do? As he makes his way towards the line, he goes. A bit of a bump on the wall, and it's a 28.949 as he's up into P4. Kevin Zunderberg is on pole position for the first time this season. He's a 10th clear of Krishy, and Richard rounds off the top three with Fleur in P4, and what an end to that qualified session. But I feel sorry for Krishy, because what could he have done, Milan?
Yeah, who knows? He was not that far behind Kevin, so maybe if he could get a lap time in, he would be one on pole position, but still he's on the front row, so he still has got a decent chance of winning this race, even if you're on the front row. Doesn't really matter if you're on pole position or second, so, but of course he would be disappointed because it is an extra point that you get for pole position, and you might need that extra point at the very end of the season. Could be the case, as it has been very close in the title fights in the previous couple of seasons. But a great lap time indeed it was from Kevin to take his first pole position of the season. Richard Bacon with the only one lap time in P3, must be said, and he has done an incredible job as well. Fleur lining up in P4, of course, the driver's second in the championship, looking to get another good result to hopefully take away the championship lead from Botti, who was now missed these previous two rounds, and Chris, of course, also quite close behind after their previous win 2 weeks ago in Spa. So both of the RB boys looking to work together to get another strong result for the team and extend their championship lead in the Constructors' Championship as well. But now we can focus on this race here for the first race in PSGL around Madrid. It should be an easy one-stop, medium to hard, hards to mediums, whichever you like. But with these walls so close, it's, well, the first couple of corners are going to be interesting.
That is for sure. First few corners will determine the story of this race. But Botti, as I mentioned, the Drivers' Championship before the race goes, is first with 32 points. But Fleur is catching 28 points in second place. And Krishy as well is P3 after a spectacular win back in Belgium with 25 points. Harm is fourth, leapt up to fourth after 20 points after a second place at the Belgian Grand Prix. The Boston Army is fifth with 16 points ahead of Mert with 15. Richard 7th with 14, Cole 8th with 12, Simon 9th with 12, and Regneto in P10 with 11 points as Vessel's just outside the top 10. Then we get ready for racing here at the Madrid circuit. Kevin Zunderberg has put himself in the perfect position, taking pole on this brand new circuit with a brilliant lap after the bad luck he suffered in Spa. He'll be determined to take that pace into a big result today. But Krishy, last week's race winner, or should I say 2 weeks ago, is right behind him and could be hot on his heels for the whole race too. Let's see what this race has to offer. There is 12 drivers in this session then, maybe a minimal chance of a safety car. I think safety cars are still turning off because there's a little bit of a glitch we saw back in Silverstone, but hopefully things will be smooth, plain sailing from here. As like I said as well, nobody's got a lot of experience around here, so consistency, time management, and staying out of trouble would be absolutely crucial, and minimising penalties as well could up at the order as well. But the lights are about to go out very, very soon. This is round 4 for the first F2 race here in Madrid. We're just waiting for the lights and the ready up signal, and drivers just into setups and strategies and fuel too. Of course, the fuels can be quite lowered because there'll be a lot of lifter and coasting. But here we go then for the race in Madrid. 4, 5 lights, and we are underway here in Spain. Chrissy gets a lightning start. He's alongside Kevin, has the inside line for turn 1, but Kevin swoops on the outside and maintains the lead. As I think Chrissy might fire back underneath, but no, Kevin still holds his first ground in first place. Fleur side by side with Richard. The 2x2 there, but I think Fleur just gets ahead of Richard there. All 12 drivers make their way through cleanly. Let's see how it goes in the chicane. Anybody looking for a move here? Nobody, it seems. Single file for every single driver so far. Only one person in the pack has started the hardcore power tyres. That is Zane in P7. There's a bit of contact. I think somebody has lost their end plate. Could it be a Haas? Yes, it is a Haas, and we'll see which Haas it is. But I think Ivan has been overtaken by Zane as I get my bearings up here as well. So I think it was Eric who's lost his wing there, unfortunately, in the Haas. No, it is teammate Vessel who's lost his front wing, unfortunately. So that's bad news for him already. At this opening segment of the race, he's going to be suffering downforce, and I don't think there's no chance of recovering. If you make a mistake here in PSGL, that could be the race over, unfortunately, for you, because there's no safety cars, I don't think, deployed. Correct me if I'm wrong, due to those glitches. But nonetheless, it's still Kevin Soderberg in the lead ahead of Chrissy by 4/10 of a second. The Racing Bulls and second and third place, like they finished in the Belgian Grand Prix, first and third then. So I think both Racing Bulls could work together to put the pressure on Kevin Soderberg, but Richard right behind is ready to pounce, and he goes sideways through there too, I think through turn 18. So lost a bit of momentum, but hopefully can get himself back on throttle and back towards the front as well, as he's still pressurising Fleur and P3. That chicane looks deadly. Yes, I agree. That chicane does look deadly indeed, and it doesn't look too appealing, does it, that chicane? I know a lot of drivers go airborne, but you've got to take it very, very precise as well. You can't afford to make mistakes through there, because that could cost you your race. But overtake is available, Milan. It is Chrissy versus Kevin for the lead.
Surprisingly, only 2 position changes since the start of the race, with Fleur getting ahead of Rich Wiki and Zane getting ahead of Ivan after he made a mistake. So not often you can see that there's only 2 position change on the opening lap of the race. But like you mentioned, only one driver on the hard tires. It is Zane in the Williams, and at the moment he's 1 second behind Simon. He wants to get within 1 second preferably, but he is going to be struggling with that because he simply doesn't have the tires to have the pace in the early stages of the race. But Chrissy is right at the back now of Kevin, heading into the braking zone of turn 13, but not really place to overtake at the moment. Fleur behind actually seems to be struggling a little bit, as they're 1 second behind and already very low on battery as well. So Fleur definitely seems to be struggling and may have used a little bit too much of the battery in the opening lap of this race. Already starting to fall behind just a little bit, and is still under big pressure from Richard Wiki in the Aston Martin in P4, as in the background Simon going a little bit too wide and washing out into the wall, as Oscar picks up a 3-second time penalty. And he is definitely struggling a lot in this race, because he's already 2 seconds behind Lewis. Richard pushing Fleur through the corner, that is through turn 21, and now getting maybe a good exit out of the final corner to potentially have to go down the start-finish straight, though it's not a very long straight, as they get towards the braking zone of turn 1, just a little bit too far behind though to make the move. But Richard now once again getting a great exit there, coming out of turn 3. Surely this time around he is going to have a go potentially at the RB driver. He is going to pull to the left hand side. Are we going to go wheel to wheel into that chicane? Probably doesn't quite go well, and he tucks in back behind. So doesn't really want to risk it that early on in this race, as Fleur going out wide once again and really struggling at this stage of the race. The gap's now 1.2 seconds towards his teammate, and having to look backwards rather than forwards, as he also has a big moment there coming out of turn 6, and Oscar has left the session. Let's hope he can try and rejoin to hopefully get at least some points, as Richard trying to go all the way around the outside through turn 12. They go wheel to, but it's a beautiful move, as the Aston Martin will have the inside line for the next one. Should be good on the inside of Fleur, but he's still hanging it around the outside, and that will turn to the inside for the next corner. But Richard with the better traction and does get ahead. It's a great move indeed. Now the RB switches back towards the outside, but he knows there's no real place to overtake. And Richard takes away that final spot on the podium. But all that fighting has cost him so much time, because the gap towards the top 2 is now grown to over 2 seconds.
Exactly. Richard in P3, 2.1 seconds behind. So like you said, all that fighting has cost him dearly. I think Fleur was holding the pack up because he's struggling there. Unfortunately, they've got bad tyres. And the top 2 have been left alone to decide who could potentially win here at the Madrid circuit. But so far, so good for Kevin Zoetemelk in first place. But I know Cushy in P2 just biding his time as well. Not attacking early. He just wants to try keep Kevin Zoetemelk in his sights, and Kevin Zoetemelk a bit of an adventure in turn 2 there as well. Just hit the wall, but hopefully nothing more than just a tap. A love kiss, unfortunately for him. Well, fortunately for him, if it was worse, he could have lost his wing. As we're going out in towards the chicane, look at him, just leapfrogging it in the air, just airborne for a few seconds. If you hit it wrong, you might end up spinning there as well for good measure, so you can be very precise as the way you go in there too. But you can definitely see it's under massive pressure. It's very easy as well, just hitting the walls, bouncing off the walls too. We've seen a lot of drivers, and even in different leagues and series I've commentated, well, I must say one of them, but other races I've seen, a lot of drivers just bounce off the walls as well and just struggle to the final sector with understeer. So yeah, the driver's confidence will be knocked down. As we see Fleur getting knocked down in P5, Simon's up into P4 now. Set Simon after Richard in P3, and Zayn on the hardcore powered tyres is doing relatively a good job despite being on the hardcore powered tyres too. Could he be a factor towards the end of this race? Could he be the one to try and get a podium? I'm not quite sure which strategy is the best in terms of medium to hard to medium, but so far so good for Zayn in P6. Over to Gavan at the opening stages of this race, and comfortably in P6 too, hunts down the medium winners of Fleur, Simon and Richard. Of course, this pack has been left alone now, or should I say been detached from Cushy and Kevin Zoetemelk, because Fleur and Richard had a big battle which ultimately led to Kevin and Cushy escaping in front of us in first and second place. The gap is 3 seconds almost there as well. The gap keeps increasing between first and second place there, so they've got the road to themselves, but it's the Racing Bull versus the Red Bull. Kevin Zoetemelk is going for his first win of the season. He took a sabbatical in the first 2 because he was on holiday. He returned in Belgium, but unfortunately him and I think it was at the time Oscar made contact in turn 1 in Belgium, and he's looking for redemption too after what happened 2 weeks ago. So the Dutchman has certainly got something to prove here as well. I think the 2 Hassers are swap places. Vessel is not pitting as Eric's been pushed down into P11. I think both Hassers have sustained damage. Yes, they have then. So both of them unfortunately are wingless, as Fleur is right behind Saul. Did I just see a Haas spin? I think I did. A Haas just spun there. That was Eric as I go on board with Fleur, Simon and Zayn, all perilously close in this battle for P5. Heats up between this trio there. Simon's just escaping, but the Mercedes goes deep. Fleur looking to try and look for a move, but unfortunately, I think the Mercedes driver of Simon just holds on. And now Richard, thanks to this squabbling for him, has pulled away by almost a second. He was just teetering on the edge of a second there, but Richard is starting to pull away now. The gap is 1.2 seconds there. That could be doable for his race. Can he close down Christian? Could it Kevin Zoetemelk? As down the inside goes Zayn, but the Racing Bull is just a bit later on the brakes there too, and maintains P5 at this stage of the race. Zayn is definitely applying the pressure on the Racing Bull and the Mercedes in front of us too, as Max has joined the session. He did join a qualifying, but unfortunately could not race, as we got the Bar Tsunami in the pit lane, lap 6. That is very early, Milan.
Indeed, that is very early, because I don't think he's going to be able to make it to the end on one set of tires, as once again I think Eric has spun through turn 20 this time around. Vessel into the pit lane as well. Now, of course, he's got front wing damage, as in the meantime Zayn has found a way past Fleur, although they're still going side by side, but Fleur backs off and is really dropping backwards in this race. Both Haas drivers into the pit lane, by the way. Oh, and that is a massive moment there from Zayn, as he completely loses control of the exit of the turns 5 and 6 chicane, but luckily for him saves the car and keeps it out the barrier, but does lose the position that he just gained on Fleur, as unfortunately Eric has retired from the session. Becomes our first retirement of this race. Not sure why he would do that, because the top 10 don't get points and there's only 12 cars in it. Well, only 11 actually, because Oscar I don't think is rejoined, so he could have just continued on to the end and scored some points, but instead he has chosen to retire from this race, as the gap at the front has grown. Kevin is starting to build the gap towards Chrissy. The gap's 1.0, 1.1, and if it stays like this, Chrissy's not going to have the boost mode coming on to the next few laps. So it's actually crucial for him to try and stay as close as possible. Otherwise, Kevin is just going to drive off into the distance, but he goes way too deep there and towards turn 20. And the gap now grows towards 1.2 seconds. So Kevin started to stretch his leg. He's going to the pit lane as well at the end of lap 6. They're all pitting very early in this race, so maybe they do have a vision that they'll be able to make it to the end on one set of hard tires, or they're just going for the 2-stop. And Fleur is also into the pit lane in the RB, looking to get out of that train that he was, losing positions in over the past couple of laps. That he has been struggling on those medium tires ever since the opening few laps of this race. But that has now released Chrissy into the lead by around 2 seconds towards Richard Wiki, so he has gained a couple of tenths of a second on the RB driver, looking to gain some more time in the next following laps. QDR Simon in P3, 1.6 behind, now still ahead of Zane, who will be looking to get past the Mercedes as soon as possible, because he is on the hard tires. He's going to have the tire advantage, so he needs to get by as soon as possible to be able to maximize this strategy. But Kevin has come out in clean air, 4.5 seconds behind Lou and 5.5 seconds ahead of Fleur, as Simon has lost the position. He has had a moment coming out of turn 12 because he's lost the position not only to Zane but to Ivan as well. And I've really noticed he's been all over the place this race, really struggling with grip, sliding around in every single corner, and unfortunately it has cost him 2 places now as he drops down to P5.
Not surprised, this track does definitely take its toll on a lot of drivers here, and you can clearly see that this track is not. There's only 12. This is the reason why only 12 people just join, because this track is not everybody's favourite. Not my favourite too. I don't think I've even completed lap around here. Krishy is in the pit lane, and so is the Red Bull of Ivan too. So that's the end of their median stint. As you can see, Ivan there flicking his way in the pit lane. Kevin Zunderberg should rejoin ahead of the Racing Bull driver Krishy. He's got a driver in front of him. That is the Ferrari Lou, who's been an outsider recently in this race. Not really much mention of him, but running in P5 now, as he's just let Frog Ivan in the pit lane. Where has he rejoined Krishy? Oh, a long way behind. That's a massive undercut there too. And let's see what the gap is between himself and Kevin as he exits the pit lane right now. The gap is, let's have a look right now, not 7 tenths of a second, but 2.6. As we can see, Kevin is right behind Lou, but backs off, not going for an audacious, optimistic move. He wants to make it very clean as well, to make sure he doesn't get himself in contact with anybody. As we see there, Kevin putting the pressure on, but Lou, a bit of a roadblock. Kevin ideally would love to get past the Ferrari as quick as he can there, but where can he do it? Where can he strike before he loses too much time? Towards Krishy. Is it around his back in turn 12? He's going to go around the outside here. Can he do it? He should have the better grip on the hard compound tyres, but Lou is still there. Kevin has a bit of a moment, but surely Kevin has the inside line for turn 13, and he does. He puts himself up into P3. That was a crucial move there for Kevin, because if he didn't make that move, he'd got a long sequence of corners, and Richard could claw his way back. Milan, do you think it's going to be a 1-stop versus a 2-stop? Because you've raced here in Madrid. How bad is the tyre wear?
Well, my race in Madrid wasn't really very representative, as I had a spin on lap 1, and pretty much that ruined my race. But by the looks of things, I think we're definitely looking at a 2-stop, because they only do 7 laps on the mediums, as Lou has gone off in turn 20, has just gone straight on into the braking zone, completely locked the fronts, I think. I don't think he's got a puncture or something, but that is unfortunately a mistake for Lou, and that has dropped him way out of contention, as Simon is into the pit lane now as well. So I definitely think we're going to be looking at a 2-stop, at least to be safe, because if they're doing only 7 laps on the mediums, they're not going to be doing 22 on the hards, I think. So just going to do a 2-stop, I believe. Zane now, of course, the one who started on the hard tires, is left out in the lead. He's got a gap of 12.5 seconds towards Kevin, whose gap towards Krishy has shrunk a little bit, because he was stuck behind the Ferrari for a little bit. And the gap is down to 2.1 seconds, similar to the gap towards Richard Wiki in what is a virtual P3. And then Fleur a little bit closer behind as well, around a second behind. So I definitely see this grid has spread out a little bit after the first stint of this race. There's still 20 laps to go though, so a long way for all of these drivers to be affording a mistake, as they could really ruin their race by that. But Zane out in front, let's see how long he's going to be able to take this hard tire, as Ivan picks up a 3-second time penalty, and he has done that, I think, through turn 13 or 14. So really a place where you normally see I'm just picking up a warning, but it is quite tricky because we did see many invalidations in qualifying, and it also seems to be a little bit of a struggle in the race as well. He's chasing the Bartolomei, who put the undercut in the McLaren 2 laps earlier. He pitted then Ivan. It has worked out. He finds himself in P6, probably will be P5 after Zane makes his pit stop. So looks to be maybe a third top 5 finish for the Bartolomei in a row. Be quite an impressive feat, as Zane out in front. The gap seems to be shrinking towards Kevin. It's now 10.4 seconds. Kevin just set the fastest lap of the race as well, and that gap of 2.1 seconds towards Chrissy has now once again grown to around 2.5, 2.6 seconds.
Indeed then, Kevin Soderberg is an absolute flyer. His last win was season 41 F2. And Fleur has just picked himself a penalty. How detrimental is that going to be towards the end of the race? He's in a battle with the Bartolomei and Richard too. And he's fighting for a podium, is Fleur. So I think his chances of a podium are slim now. Unless, of course, other people around him pick up that 3-second penalty, which is quite likely as well. But his last win, Kevin Soderberg, was at the US Grand Prix in season 41. That's incredible. It's been a long, long time. And in season 42 as well, I think he was in F1, and he absolutely struggled, Kevin. Couldn't get it to grip, unfortunately. But looks like he's doing well here so far in this division. And, of course, possibly for a race win. Hopefully I don't jinx it too quickly. But Cushy has brought the gap down, you know. The gap is 1.8 seconds. It was over 2 seconds at one point then, so he could be catching him hand over fist here. Cushy is on the charge. In this second half of the race, could this be Cushy's? We're about to find out. He does have a 1-lap tyre difference. Does that make a difference or not? Probably a little bit, but we'll see if Cushy can catch up towards Kevin Soderberg once again and have the battle for the lead of the Grand Prix. But there's been some massive field spreads, and Cushy is on a charge, you know, because he's just set the fast lap of the race as well, and he's 1.8 seconds behind too. So can he bring that gap down bit by bit here? It might be a bit difficult, but we'll see if Christian can manage it or not. He was being hunted. I heard somebody in the game chat. But he's being hunted. He was hunted. Sorry, I got distracted because I could hear somebody in the game chat, even though I'm in the party chat. But they've just left the session, so I got a bit distracted there. Not quite sure if you guys heard on the stream or not. If you did, apologies, but it wasn't much of anything. But he was being hunted. Now, could he be the hunter? Here at the Madrid Grand Prix, the gap is stabilising, fluctuating between 1.8 1.2 seconds there, so not really gaining, not really losing time there. Kevin responded to him as well. Kevin trying to pull the pin here and keep him crucially outside the 1 second range of overtake mode as well. He's responded to his lap times, so this is teetering on the edge here between these two. Bounced off each other's lap times and responded to each other too. Richard, on the other hand, in P4 is 2 seconds away from Crishy, so he's not too far behind the racing board driver either. He's actually bridged the gap between himself and Fleur. Fleur has dropped back massively. The gap is 3.1, so Richard has been left alone. He could be on course for a net P3, but of course, Zane, everybody else on the midi compound tyres, Zane went the other direction instead of one direction on the hard compound tyres. I started the hard compound tyres. Hopefully you guys knew what I did there with that pun. But the gap is 6.5 seconds there between himself and Kevin. Of course, Zane will go on the midi compound tyres later on in the Grand Prix. How much deficit, how much time can he make up towards the end of the race on those brand new spanking midi compound tyres? But firstly, I think he's got to really elongate his hard compound tyres. He's really got to take him a long way in the Grand Prix to minimise the distance on the medium compound tyres later on once he's attached those tyres on his car. But so far, the TRT driver doing a mega job so far, and hopefully his strategy bodes well for him later on in the race. He was with Kevin Soderberg, I think, in season 41 in F2, and I think he took a few podiums too that season as well. So Zane and Kevin, they have raced each other before in different tiers. And now, once again, they meet each other in Division 2. And the gap keeps decreasing between the first and the second place. Kevin is starting to bring the gap down bit by bit here. Hand over fist. Of course, he's on a brand new hard compound tyre, so he's bringing the gap down. But Chris, you know, the gap's, like I said, it's stabilising between those two, 1.8, 1.9. This is incredible, you know. Each driver pushing hard as they can, trying to keep each other at bay at arm's length. Chris trying to bring the gap down. Kevin trying to keep the gap over 1 second, and they're doing a mega job. They're matching up times as the Barcelona and the van there squabbling for P5, 6 and 7. We can see the Mercedes on the inside, but he's boxed in behind the McLaren driver. And does Simon have the move done? He does. Simon's up into P7. He did struggle massively in the first stint, but now he's putting the pressure on the Barcelona in P6 there. Let's see if Simon can try and get past the Barcelona. The Barcelona in P6 obviously pitted way before everybody else, so that's why He's leapfrogged the other guys and could be paying the price towards the end now, as Simon and Van is right behind too, ready to pounce on the McLaren driver. He's just at the wall there too for good measure out of the final corner in turn 22. Simon's on the back of him. Simon goes to the left hand side and surely gets his move done before turn 1. He claims the apex, but there he is still. But McLaren driver has to back out now. Now the gap between second and third place is 1.5 seconds, so 4/10 is the advantage Krishy has eaten into. Can he gain more time on Kevin Zuderberg? This is incredible and fascinating to watch between those two, as Van up the inside before the chicane and puts himself in 7th place.
It's going to be a matter of time as well before Kevin catches up to the back of Zane, so he might lose out a little bit of time with that. Depends on where he gets on the back of the Williams driver, so that could be an opportunity maybe for Krishy to close the gap down even further. If Krishy wins this race, then he will be our new championship leader after taking 2 wins in a row, just like Botti did in the first 2 races. So only 2 different race winners so far this season, as Krishy has got the gap down to 1.3 seconds, and it keeps shrinking each and every single lap as they come out of turn 19. Of course, there's still 17 laps remaining in this race, and I still think there's going to be a second pit stop at some point around what could be maybe lap 18, 19, lap 20, something like that. Who knows? But the gap between Zane and Kevin is around 3 seconds. Krishy 1.2, as he's gained another few tenths of a second on the previous lap. Richard Wicke is not quite able to match the pace of the RB driver, but he's not losing too much time either, because the gap's still 2.7 seconds between himself and the RB has definitely dropped. The other RB of Fleur is now full 6 seconds behind in P5 and might be getting under pressure soon from Simon, Ivan and the Bart Tsunami, who are still in this little train they have, and slowly catching up to the back of Fleur. So what could have been a race of opportunities for Fleur might not turn out into the result that he would have hoped for, because at the moment he's in P5, but at risk of losing more position, dropping down to P6, 7 or maybe even 8. Not scoring a lot of points when he should be. But at the front, Kevin has now gained a lot of time on Zane, and he's going to get right at the back of the Williams driver. Let's hope he can find a decent spot to get past, otherwise he will lose even more time towards Pitch. Of course, he's already going to be starting to suffer from a little bit of dirty air, so hoping to get past him could be potentially around turn 1 or at the exit of turn 3, but it does open a door for Krishy to close the gap even further as we let them down to the braking zone of turn 20. And Kevin now gets up close to the back of the Williams through the penultimate corner, and let's see where he is going to be able to get past. Krishy behind now, 1.5 seconds, so not really gaining that much despite it, and it's actually Richard Wicke getting a lot of time as Krishy washes out wide through the final corner, losing even more time. And now Richard Wicke is really starting to gain time on the both of them, because Kevin is losing a bit of time through turn 1. What he does have is the boost mode for the entirety of this lap, so that might actually help him out. Is Zane going to try and defend this? I don't think he is, as there goes Kevin to the inside, very close with the wall on the right hand side, but he does get that position, is back out on track in P1. There's yellow flags behind because Vessel has spun around at the exit of the penultimate corner, turn 21. Definitely not the race for the Haas boys, as they both have been struggling. Kevin immediately creating that gap, and now Krishy is in a bit of an awkward spot because he is going to be catching up to the Williams in the middle sector where you normally really can't overtake.
He just had a massive slide too, and he's right to the back of the Williams. Look at the overspeed he has, and straight past him as well, and he used a lot of boost as well for good measure to get past him. And now, can he chase after Kevin Zuderberg? The gap is 1.7, so lost a bit of time towards himself. But Kevin does have boost for the rest of this lap. Mummy Nick says hi to both of us in the chat, Milan and Jamie. Hello to you, Mummy Nick. Hopefully you are doing all right, mate. 14 laps left to go in this race. We don't know if, well, Zane's done 14 laps on the hardcore power tyres. These guys pitted about lap 9, 10, so maybe these tyres could go towards the end. It's a bit optimistic, but we'll see how the tyres hold up towards the end. Of course, we see a lot of people pitting early in the race, but I'm not quite sure if it's a 1-stop or 2-stop. I should have done some research towards the end. But Kevin Zuderberg, then the gap is 1.8 seconds, so he's got a bit of breathing space again, because the gap was closing down bit by bit between himself and Krishy. The gap was almost 1.2, and he was certainly in danger of being in overtake mode of Krishy, but the gap's gone up to 2 seconds there. So it looks like Kevin Zuckerberg has found some pace once again as he's brought the gap up to 2 seconds. And how long is Zayn going to go on the hardcore power tyres? Of course, doing the one-stop strategy from hards to mediums. Richard is right behind, searching for another podium here. Or Kevin has made a mistake. Mama Nick says, why are there only 12 people in F2? Because of Madrid, possibly, or it is the summer still, and a lot of people do go on holiday in the summer, so that could be another reason. Or they could boycott the Madrid Grand Prix, because I would do so as well. We did see a lot of people in the PC tiers, as they had to merge the tiers too. But hopefully the attendance for F1 and F3 and F4 will be okay. But yeah, this track is certainly not everyone's favourite indeed. And hopefully, as the season progresses, we can see the attendance back to where it should be. Ivan, side by side with Fleur. These two, a shocking race for their standards, as Fleur holds it around the outside. Ivan will have to look for inventive ways to get past, scrapes the wall and goes past him. Or does he? Does he finally complete the move against Fleur? No, because Fleur has the inside line. This is great race. A bit of banging between those two there. But Ivan, will he eventually get past? Yes, he does. Puts himself into P6. And you can clearly see that through those sequence of corners, going side by side through there, proved great racing. And now Ivan's up into P6 ahead of Fleur. But back towards the front, what has happened to... Oh! What has happened?
Mistake.
He has. I apologise. It's not like me to miss things, but Krishy has made a big mistake. He's done it to P4. What on earth has happened to Krishy? I can't believe I missed that. As we see Fleur and Ivan going side by side, so I do apologise to the audience for missing that. That was the most crucial part of the race, to see if Krishy can bring down the gap and fight Kevin Zuckerberg. The answer is no. He's fallen down into P4. He's behind Zayn again and Richard for P2 as well. So Krishy, chance of winning the Grand Prix is over. That mistake has big consequences and ramifications for his race now, and Kevin Zuckerberg has got a bit of breathing space. The gap is 4 seconds between himself and Richard there, so nice bit of a gap for him to settle into and keep going for the last 12 laps of this Grand Prix. Would be another pit stop, or can they take their tyres towards the end of the race? Krishy has got to do the hard work once again to get past Zayn, but Zayn's tyres, he's doing a good job, you know, to keep those tyres intact. 16 laps of the hardcore power tyres still going, but of course a pit stop will be imminent very, very soon in this race. We saw how quickly the mini-comp power tyres faded towards that first stint, so maybe try to go as long as he can on the hardcore power tyres to reduce the arrears and damage towards the end for the mediums then. But I think he'll let Krishy go, because there's no point fighting Krishy at this stage in the race. Is that rain? It is. I'm talking about the UK, by the way. It's finally raining in the UK for the first time in God knows how many months. But yes, it's nice to see rain once again, because there's been plenty of fires across England and Europe, but it is raining, thankfully. But Kevin Zuckerberg is 3.6 seconds ahead, as Oscar has just pitted once again on the new hardcore power tyres. What a dismal race for Oscar. Second race in a row. He's had a terrible race. And Krishy has now picked up a 3-second time penalty in this race. How crucial is that going to be towards the end? How detrimental is that going to be for him, as we see Krishy go over to P3 ahead of Zayn for P3?
Don't think it's going to cost him that much unless he gets back ahead of Richard, but the gap is around 2 seconds, as there's actually the other spots in between of them. So a little bit of an illusion there with Richard being closer than you think. But Krishy, unfortunately, with that 3-second time penalty, will cost him, well, potentially at the end of the race, if he gets it back to Richard's wiki for P2. But Kevin is starting to check out of this race, 3.6 seconds. And the longer that Zayn is continuing on these hard tires, the more I believe that we're not going to see another pit stop from the front runners, because he's done 17 laps already. He's on his 18th lap on the hard tires, and there's only 11 laps to go, meaning that Kevin would need to do 22. So those two lap numbers getting quite close towards each other. So I think they're just going to make it towards the end of the race. So the hard tires being very durable around the Madrid, clearly, and they're just going to stay out and make it towards the end of the race. The gap stabilizing between Kevin and Richard Wiki, but absolutely no mistake could be well allowed for Kevin, because he will probably experience the same feat that Krishy had, as he was in a comfortable P2 position chasing after Kevin, but then made that mistake. I'm not sure what exactly happened. I only saw the back end of it. It wasn't turn 20, so he may have locked the rear tires or the fronts in turn 20, and then unfortunately had to rejoin and lost a couple of seconds and a couple of positions down in P3. But now he's in upper pursuit once again of Richard Wiki, trying to close the gap back down to maybe take away that second place again, and hope that Richard picks up a 3-second time penalty, as well as he sliding his way there through turns 5 and 6. Zane still continuing on the hard tires. Of course, he knows that the medium tires do not last that long, because I don't think any driver did any more than 10 laps on the medium tires. You can definitely see the graining though on the front left on the Williams driver, so a pit stop is going to be imminent for him. Otherwise, he would risk getting himself a puncture. But I think maybe 1-2 more laps, and it definitely should be safe to make it to the end on a set of medium tires. He is going to fall behind quite a bit though, down in P8 probably. But with brand new medium tires, let's see what he can do. There's also a couple of drivers behind him who will be ahead of him with time penalties, so that might help him out in getting a few more positions. And if they fight as well as Fleur and the Bartolami are close towards each other. Bartolami trying to get past the RB around the outside here is not quite going to work. Fleur is really struggling in this race, as he has been completely dropped by Ivan and Simon, as the gap's almost 3 seconds. So both RB boys definitely struggling a little bit in this race, and Fleur definitely more than his teammate Chrissy, although we did see that mistake a few laps ago. But the Barcelona looking to get close and overtake, as Zane finally into the pit lane at the end of lap 19 onto lap 20 to put on a set of medium tires, and he's going to have to do 10 laps on those tires. Let's see where he comes out and how much time he needs to make up to get a few more positions. He is going to come out in P8, but with the Bartolami and Fleur potentially fighting, he could get close. He could get close and maybe look at a top 6 result at best, maybe top 5. Who knows? If something else happens with, of course, those drivers ahead, will be doing a long stint on the hard tires and might run into some tire issues as well at the end. So that could be an opportunity for Shane to gain even more position. He comes out in P8, but a good 10 seconds behind the field.
Indeed then, so 10.5 seconds to make up on his nearest rival in front of him, the Bartolami, his first target. Can he catch in at a rate or not? He's got to gain like over a second a lap to get him as well, so he needs a huge chunk of lap time. But I want to mention his stint on the hard compound tyres has been absolutely monumental, because he was constantly in the 34s. Yes, he was in the 35s previously on his last lap, but of course the tyre wear was getting worse and worse and worse, and constantly chewing up as well. So the gap is already 9.4, so gain about 7 tenths in the first sector. The Bartolami is right behind Fleur too, so these two will have a bit of company behind him shortly in this race, with Zane catching it to rate or knots behind him, with the gap being 8.9. Zane went a completely different direction in this race, from hard to mediums. The only driver to start the hard compound tyres. Could this be dividends for him later on in the race, making his way back up to the field on those mid compound tyres? Catching is one thing, overtaking is another thing as well. And the gap between first and second place, Kevin just keeping a constant gap for first and second there. The gap is 4 seconds there, so I don't think Richard has any response to Kevin's number. But it's been a clean race for Richard so far, Peter, I must say. Done a really good job as well, and clearing Fleur in the opening segment of this race. Had he got past him early on, could it be for a challenger for the lead of the Grand Prix? Who knows? But unfortunately he's not, and he has to settle possibly for second place, so unless Kevin Sutherland makes a mistake. Only one mistake so far I've seen from Kevin. That was down at turn 2 when he went wayward and hit the wall. He gently brushed the wall on the outside, but luckily escaped from it, and no further damage done indeed. And now he's just bringing it home. That's what he needs to do now. Don't take any risks. Maybe pick up some warnings along the way in this race. But now the Dutchman, all he needs to do is bring it home and don't make any mistakes, because it's all in his hands. The pendulum is pretty much swinging towards his way. And if he keeps it going like this, he's on course to take his first win of the season after the first 2 races he missed. In Belgium, he qualified in second place, but unfortunately, I think Oscar got that drive-through penalty, hit him in towards turn 1, ruined both their races abruptly, and fell down the orders tremendously. And no safety cars helped them later on in the race. The Bartolami and Fleur are scrapping, but look at the gap. The gap was like 10 seconds, and now it's 5.4. That's 5 seconds gain. And look at this battle going down here towards turn 20. The Bartolami covered the inside line against Fleur, and Fleur not able to get past them. But they both know that a hot charger Zane is on the way very, very soon. He's there in the background towards the penultimate corner, and he should be there very soon. How many places can Zane make? Plus, there's a few drivers in front of him that do pick up a 3-second penalty. Can he gain from that, I wonder? But he's got to make his way through these cars first before he can get towards Ivan Simon. I think maybe P5, P6 is his target. I think the way he's going, setting those blistering lap times. And here comes Fleur on the inside towards the chicane. Oh, and ended his tears. They're both in the gravel in a spin. And Fleur, oh my goodness me. Oh, Zayn, did he hit the wall? Did Zayn hit the wall? I think he did. I think he did, but just got away with it. He is so lucky not to hit those cars who were ghosted, and that Zayn's progress could have been ruined. But Zayn says, thank you very much. That's 2 for 1. No, it's not. No, it's not. A illegal overtake under the yellow flags has cost him a drop so much time, and he's back into 8th place. Can you believe it? So despite taking 2 places, he had to give way because I think he overtook under the yellow flags. And look at this. Can he charge on the inside of both of them? No, he can't. He lets these 2 fight. Will he look for an opportunity if these 2 make a mistake again? But Zayn now, his work is easy because he's caught up to them, whilst these 2 make contact. But Zayn has to be patient. He can't afford to get involved in this melee. He knows on better tyres so far. He's just looking for a way to get past him. Where can he make the move down towards turn 20 or turn number 1? But hopefully he doesn't get himself involved in contact, because that was very lucky for the chicane there. Coming across 2 cars, we're stranded on the track, but luckily just getting away with it unscathed.
Very close stuff indeed. Unfortunately, though, I think it has limited him to a P6 result at best, because the gap towards Ivan at P5 is now 13.5 seconds. He does have a 3-second time penalty, of course, but he's not going to gain a further 10 seconds with only 6 laps remaining. As this fight still continuing on between the Bartolomé Fleur and Zayn absolutely wants to get by as soon as possible. As Fleur trying to get a good exit out of turn 3, will be looking to get alongside, but hopefully it's not going to end the same way as it did on the previous lap. Fleur once again having a look towards the inside, but this time around not going to go for it, and stays behind. And that's way too deep into the chicane. Both of them go across, and through goes the Williams of Zayn, taking the position finally on track, as they're still side by side heading into the braking zone uphill. And it's the Bartolomé still ahead of Fleur, but the Bartolomé went way too deep into turn 5 and 6, and as a result Fleur also outbraked himself, and Zayn said thank you very much. Finally took the positions and is now released into clean air, but the gap is 14 seconds towards Ivan. But at least I think he's going to be able to secure this 6th place, unless something happens to the drivers ahead of him having some tire issues. It could be at the very end of this race, but I don't think it's going to be any higher than P6. But the fight between the Bartolomé and Fleur definitely doesn't seem to be over just yet in this race. But well, really not the race that Fleur would have hoped for. After being in a decent position at the end of qualifying, but now running down in a lowly 8th place, also with a 3-second time penalty. So even if he does overtake the Bartolomé, still will need to get 3 seconds ahead to be able to stay in 7th place. So it looks like it's going to be 8th place, unfortunately, for the man second in the championship, and I don't think that's going to be enough to steal the lead of the championship. And it might actually go to Krishy, who is still running in P3, hasn't really closed up that much towards Richard Wicke. But at least is securing a podium position, because the gap towards Simon in B4 is over 10 seconds, and he's definitely not getting that in the final 5 laps of the race. And Kevin Zonneberg, the gap between himself and Richard Wicke has stabilized completely over the past 5 to 10 laps. It was around 4 seconds, it is still 4.3 seconds. Not taking any risks, and Kevin seems to be cruising towards that maiden victory of the season. Of course, not want to jinx him, but he looks to be in control. With 5 laps to go, and Richard Wicke doesn't seem to have any answer, and might just settle for what would still be a very good P2 in the Aston Martin.
Meanwhile, I just seen the McLaren driver hit the wall and lose his end plate, unfortunately, as well. That could have been out of turn 8, I think it was. Don't quote me on that one, because I don't exactly know these corners. I know turn 12, that banked right-hander. But yeah, unfortunately, the McLaren driver is losing some downforce on his car. It's the Barcelona. He got himself involved in all sorts of carnage and contact in this race. Fighting with Fleur. Yes, it was a lucky indeed for Zayn. Could Zayn catch Ivan? Possibly, I'm not quite sure. Plus that 3-second penalty, as Krishy has picked up another penalty. That's his chances of he still could be the podium, because the gap behind him is 10.3. So yeah, I think he still could be the podium here between himself and Simon. Simon has got a 3-second penalty, so yeah, I think Krishy will maintain this P3, but gotta be very careful though not to pick up any more infringements around this racetrack. I think a lot of drivers feeling the fatigue around here in Madrid. Of course, a lot of concentration is required around here too. A lapse in concentration could mean end up in the wall. And here comes Fleur on the inside towards turn 1, but the Barcelona has the inside line and blocks him off at turn 2, so doesn't give the chance to open up. the corner there for Fleur as he has to stay behind and has massive wheel spin. So look at the grain you can see there on Fleur's tyres. Same for the Barcelona as well. These two pitting quite early in the race, and they may be paying the price too on these hard compound tyres, just struggling. We've seen how far Zane went on his hard compound tyres. He went very, very far indeed, about lap 20 or lap 19. So I think these two should be safe at this stage in the Grand Prix. They may suffer a little bit towards the end, but hopefully can keep these tyres intact and not deflate towards in the Grand Prix. Kevin Soderberg, though, is managing and controlling the pace beautifully in first place. The gap is 4.2, and have control as well under immense pressure to keep the gap as it is stabilised is an incredible achievement itself as well. The gap is 4.2. Richard has no response there towards Kevin. Kevin has driven a flawless race so far. He's got 3 laps left to go in this Grand Prix. He was challenged by Christian in the first stint, but during the second stint he just pulled away and never looked back and never made a mistake once again, as his second stint has been absolutely monumental and fantastic so far, and all he needs to do is just bring it home. Meanwhile, the battle between 7th and 8th place is still brewing between the Fleur and the Barcelona. The Barcelona hold on for dear life, but he knows Fleur has got a 3-second penalty in the Racing Bull. Not gone Racing Bull's way so far, although one of them will get a podium, but Christian ideally would have loved to challenge Kevin Soderberg. He was closed in the rate of knots at one point, but it just come undone after he got past Zane and just made a mistake somewhere on his lap and fell down to P4, so that pretty much unravelled his race and had to settle for a podium. But a podium's still good. Like you said, he will still take the championship lead, and every single point in this league matters towards the end. Here goes Fleur, but once again he backs off. He knows the mistake he made last time and doesn't want to repeat the same mistake again. But there's still 11 drivers in this race. Lou, Vessel, Oscar, these guys have been pretty much dropped back by a lot of these guys, almost lapped as well. Lou in 10th place and Oscar in 11th place. Oscar still in the session, still driving on. I know how difficult it'll be. I think he's in AI mode. I don't think it's him driving, so I think Oscar has left the session. It's not ghosted, but this is definitely AI driving. But Fleur is still going for a move against the Barcelona, but he just holds on for the time being.
Yeah, I think Oscar didn't really rejoin the session after he got kicked out, and I think he's not ghosted because ghosting is turned off, but he's running around in P11. Not going to be any points for the Aston Martin driver, but respect for Lou and Vessel still continuing on and bringing home some valuable points with a P9 and P10 finish. But we have got 3 laps remaining in this race. Kevin has got a gap of 3.7 seconds. The gap has come down a little bit. His tires are not looking too great either, to be honest, on the front left, with a lot of graining underneath his Red Bull, but I'm sure he's managing it. But the gap is coming down a little bit towards Richard Wicke, but not by too much, maybe a few tenths each and every single lap, but he can afford that because the gap is around 4 seconds. So he has got a little bit of a margin in hand, unless he picks up a 2-second time penalty, of course, as the Barcelona and Fleur continue to fight it out through turns 1 and 2, and Fleur once again close to the back of the McLaren, but struggles with the exit of turn 3. Now potentially having a go in towards the chicane. It's going to be deja vu between the two, but McLaren defends the inside. Fleur looks on the outside, but there's just no space to make that move once again. Massive tank stopper on the exit, and it's going to send one to the inside, and he's not going to make that corner. He was never going to make that corner as he goes way too deep and blocks himself in there with the Marshal, watching on, wondering what he is seeing tonight here by the RB driver. Unfortunately drops out and down in P8, and that is all about that. That's all for that battle between the Barcelona and Fleur. The Barcelona finally getting released might be a bit of a relief for him to not be having to deal with the RB driver for the remainder 3 laps and just focus on making to the end with these very worn out tire. He's, of course, I think he is the first driver who he was the first one to make the pit stop. Some of his tires are the oldest off the grid, so he definitely has to do some tire saving to not pick up a puncture and risk losing that 7th place. But besides that, I don't think there's going to be any more changes, although Vessel has now got up to the back of Fleur. Of course, Vessel doesn't have a penalty, so doesn't really have to overtake the RB driver, but it could be another battle brewing up in these final 2 laps. But Fleur is really struggling with the tires, and that might not be as much of a fight as he would have hoped for. But it's going to be P9 then for the driver second in the championship. Really not ideal for him. But we are nearing the final lap of the race. Kevin still managing the gap towards Richard Wicke. The gap's down to 3.3 seconds. Chrissy is doing a good job as well by staying close towards the Aston Martin. The gap's still 2 seconds, and QDR Simon on for a very good result, P4 as well, and Ivan not really any contention to gain any more places, but a P5 would be a decent result for him as well. But Kevin coming there out of turn 20, he's going to have one lap remaining to convert his maiden pole position into his maiden race win this season in PSGL F2.
Indeed he is then. He just rounds the final corner to start the last lap of the Madrid Grand Prix. The gap is 3.3 seconds as well. Keeping that gap over 3 seconds, just in case he might pick up penalty towards the end, but I don't think Kevin will do that. Zane, best finish is P6, like I predicted then, but could he gain more? I don't think so. I think Ivan, it was a bit of a tall order there to catch Ivan, even if he didn't suffer with the yellow flags at this particular part of the track where Kevin is right now. But yes, Kevin Zoetemelk, after the bad luck at the Belgian Grand Prix, has finally gone his way. And Kevin, we know, has suffered from bad luck from time to time. He's sometimes played with bad luck. But we know that Kevin Zoetemelk, when he's on it, and he never looks back. He hits the wall, and hopefully he doesn't have any damage. Those tyres are grained up and chewed up as well, but I don't think he's picked up any damage at all, and he just should keep going now towards the end as Ivan picks up a penalty in this race. But what makes Kevin's performance even more impressive and spectacular is the consistency of his pace. He hasn't just pulled away and disappeared. He's been able to maintain the gap almost the same rates for lap after lap as well. Keeping Krishy at bay, keeping Richard at bay as well, as Max has left the session, as he's never given Krishy or anybody else a genuine opportunity to close in. This incredible difficult achieve over race distance because tyre performance changes, fuel load, traffic, and even the smallest mistakes could cost several tenths per second. Who spun?
Krishy.
Oh, Krishy spun. Yes, he has. The gap is 2.1, but Kevin shouldn't worry. Kevin's coming towards the final corner, and for the first time this season, Kevin Zoetemelk wins here in Spain and Madrid. The gap was 2 seconds. Richard in P2, but Krishy has spun, and that could give the podium towards Simon. Simon's right behind. What a shame for Krishy. All he needs to do is bring it home, but those tyres are given up. And Simon will pick up a podium here in Madrid. Krishy had it, but unfortunately made that big mistake, and the gap was 1.1. That must be painful there for Krishy, who just missed out the podium, but I still think he'll take the championship lead after the race. Zayn will finish in P6, the only driver to go from hard to the mini compound tyres. The Barcelona P7 ahead of Fleur and Vessel in P9. Fleu and Oscar's crossed the line already to finish in P11, and Lou in P10. But well done to Kevin Zoetemelk for leading this race as well. It could have been easy to switch off and lose concentration, but Kevin has remained completely composed. He found that perfect rhythm, fast enough to stay out of reach, but controlled it enough to avoid throwing the victory away. The hallmark of a really mature race drive from Kevin Zoetemelk. Well done to him indeed. A deserved win, and nobody except Krishy challenged him from the start of the Grand Prix. And when Krishy made a mistake, Kevin Zoetemelk drove off to the sunset, and Kevin has delivered one of his most clinical performances yet of this season. And that is the end then of the Madrid Grand Prix. Lou, the last one to cross the line because Oscar was lapped. He is driving around in AI. It is Oscar who's not here. But that's the end here in Madrid. Not the climatic race you expect, but there was only 12 drivers here in this race, so hopefully attendance will be much better later on this season. We've got a long way to go still in a short span season, and hopefully the next races will definitely deliver something. The next race is at the Austrian Grand Prix. That race always delivers with 3 DRS zones around there. It should put on a spectacular show in Austria. Not DRS zones, sorry, overtake mode and straight mode. There'll be a lot of lift and coasting, a lot of battles too for good measure. So don't miss out on the Austrian Grand Prix next week. Hopefully the attendance will be much better, and hopefully Botti will be back too, and the rest of the drivers. But Milan, thank you very much for being alongside me once again. I know I was late, I know I was unprepared, but thank you so much for being alongside me. It's been an absolute pleasure to be alongside you every single time you commentate.
No problem, mate, and I fully agree. It always is a pleasure. So great to have you alongside me, and of course a very well-deserved win for Kevin, I must say. But that wasn't then for the Madrid Grand Prix, and hopefully next week when we return, we'll have a bit of a larger grid.
Indeed then. So yeah, this is how Madrid went. Not my favourite track indeed. It could be better, but yeah, that's a learning curve for me. That's a learning curve for the drivers and the calendar as well. It was a bit of a controversial one. A lot of drivers not turn up here, unfortunately, but yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. You can't always have a full attendance. But we move on to Austria. Next race is next week, and Formula One returns for the Dutch Grand Prix. The Dutch Grand Prix always puts on an electric atmosphere with the Orange Army, and also Verstappen too. Let's hope Verstappen in his home country can deliver for Red Bull and his fans, but that could be unlikely. But Kimi Antonelli, the way he's going so far, could be the one to watch out for. But also, yesterday as well, what to Pascal Wehrlein. He's one of my favourite drivers in F1 at the time. When he was in Manor and Sauber, I always was a big fan of his, but unfortunately didn't to progress further to F1. He should have been, could have been, but that's a talk for another day, discussion for another day if that does happen. But yes, he's now, I think, a two-time champion of Formula E. And Taylor Barnard, former Formula 2 driver, has become the new youngest driver to win in Formula E as well. So that was an incredible achievement there for Taylor. And yeah, it was a bit of a controversial one towards the end of Formula E, but next gen should be much faster. So hopefully Formula E will be more excited. But yeah, Pascal Wehrlein, congratulations to the German drivers for winning the Formula E Championship. We'll see you all later. Goodbye for now. Take care, and see you next Monday at the exact same time at 7 p.m. This time I won't be late.